What makes a community go from one of the least toxic communities in the industry to one where members are now saying Minecraft is dead? Minecraft is one of the larger online game communities, with over 141 million active users per month. But it's the game with the least percentage of players reporting toxic behaviour. That is, until now. Now even Minecraft has been rocked recently with reports of the community becoming more toxic over time. The developers have recently rolled out some updates to address this toxic behaviour with views to permanently ban offending members, but it's been received with major backlash in the community. I'm talking intense. How do you best deal with toxic members to ensure the health of your community? Studies actually show that temporary bans are a lot more effective than permanent bans. Oof, Minecraft. Minecraft is a game that was built on community. If you're a business that is building with the community at the forefront, or you're dealing with toxic members infiltrating your community and bringing the whole vibe down, then you'll definitely want to watch this video. I'll discuss how toxic creep happens in the first place, then review how the Minecraft developers try to address toxic behavior in their community. And finally, what community research and I, as community coach, believe the developers should have done to avoid such an intense backlash from their community, whilst also ensuring that toxic members are being dealt with. So let's back up and provide some context for how the toxic vibes crept into the Minecraft community. 2 out of 3 gamers have experienced toxic behavior in online communities. That's a really big deal. Online abuse can cause real-world harm, where more than half of these gamers feel emotionally impacted by this toxic behavior. Minecraft is a popular sandbox-style video game acquired by Microsoft. Despite the enormous popularity of the game with children, the average Minecraft player is actually men in their mid-20s. Players can create and break apart various kind of blocks in 3D worlds. There are no real goals to this game. It's really up to the player's imagination as to what they build. Now, there are 2 ways for the Minecraft communities to exist. Either via their Java edition, where players can independently host and privately run their own gaming community, with zero oversight by Microsoft, or via Bedrock, which is primarily hosted by the game developer themselves, known as Mojang Studios. There's generally more oversight on these servers. The size and scope of these server communities can vary from an individual hosting a small server for their friends to an entire school looking to explore group learning in a digital space. Even the United Nations has used it to provide digital experiences around urban planning. Here's the 2 most recent controversies rocking the Minecraft community lately. 1 month ago, the developers pushed out an update that the community was not happy about. The update was very specific to gameplay. For example, players were expecting fireflies that had utility in the game, and that didn't happen in the developer's latest update. They realized that fireflies were toxic to frogs. You can check out the game rules if you're really interested in this part, but for this video I'm going to be focused more on the community elements. So once news broke about this new update, people in the community got mad. Then other members in the community started complaining that the community had become more toxic because players were being rude to the developers. It was just completely changing the general vibe, especially after their previous update that had been really well received by the community. You could say that the developers had not managed the expectations of the community well, so there are 2 sides to the coin here. The toxic level, in any case, was rising in the community, along with the dissatisfaction. In fact, official research was conducted looking at 3 different types of Minecraft game server communities. They were specifically looking at how toxic the communities were. I'll post a link to this research in the description below in case you want to read the full paper. The 3 servers varied in membership size and moderation capacity. The study found that among the 3 servers where over 1.4 million messages were assessed by over 9,000 unique users in over 28,000 messages could be categorized as severely toxic, over 24,000 were considered sexually explicit, and 75,000 were considered hateful. Many of the in-game offenders were repeat offenders. It was also found that hateful messages were 21% higher in public chats versus private. It's plausible that players use hateful language in the community to provoke outrage or garner attention, and it may often start with an invitation for other members to join in to the hateful language. Now let's take a look at how Minecraft developers tried to address the rising toxic vibes in their community. Last month, Minecraft introduced a player reporting tool in their Java edition. Now remember, that's the side where players can play independently and privately run their own community servers. This now means that the developer had decided to take a way more active role in the Java edition. They introduced a reporting tool for players to report inappropriate chat messages or dangerous behavior. Minecraft moderators were to review these reports, and for those deemed offending members, they would be permanently banned from the server, as well as playing the game, as they were considered to have violated community guidelines. Players freaked out at this update, because firstly, Mojang developers had confirmed that this effort would only focus on what players report and exclude any proactive monitoring or moderation on their behalf. So you could see situations arise where players could be unfairly banned from the game, especially by other players that perhaps were trolls themselves and just trying to get other players banned. To add to this controversy, members had obviously voiced their frustrations with this new tool, and the community manager for Minecraft responded in a Reddit thread addressing these frustrations, but seemed to manage to frustrate the community even more, especially with this last line saying that they valued their community feedback, but then community members didn't really feel like their voices are being heard at all. To add tinder to the fire, there was also further controversy around the Minecraft developers completely dismissing blockchain and crypto projects in a way that was pretty negative. The Web3 world wanted to get involved with Minecraft, but because of the developers' reaction, Web3 projects such as NFT Worlds have just said they'll just go ahead and create their own version. But it's generally a pretty closed-minded view and not exactly taking a collaborative view to communicating with the broader community. Now let's take a look at what the community research and myself believes the developers should have done to avoid such an intense backlash from their community, whilst also ensuring that they dealt with these toxic members. From the same study that I mentioned earlier, it was found that servers with in-depth community guidelines were associated with more positive social spaces. Of the servers that this study reviewed, the server with the most extensive community guidelines and highest ratio of moderators to members had the lowest frequency of sexually explicit, hateful, and severely toxic behavior between users, suggesting the positive impact of strong guidelines. Interestingly enough, in the research, it appears that server rules matter even more than how many moderators you have in the community. Temporary bans were proven to be an effective solution for reprimanding bad behavior. Temporary bans reduced actioned users' sexually explicit content by 82%, hateful comments by 93%, and severe toxicity by 85%. Active, effective human moderation and community guidelines are critical to reducing this toxic behavior. In the research, it was shown that the server with the most moderators, the most extensive guidelines, had the fewest incidents of these kind of behaviors. My recommendation to Mojang developers, and let's face it, this is an incredibly tough issue to crack. Minecraft has been around for 11 years, and servers on Java have been running independently with no interference from Minecraft before. They've been able to set their own rules independently and manage the community in their own unique way. The servers on Java are being hosted or paid for by the hosts, so they're going to believe that they should have full power over their servers and how they're run. The main issue arises that Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, and both of these brands want to ensure that their own set of community guidelines are being met. Otherwise, you have these issues where, although people are in these independently run servers, they're being subjected to toxic behaviour that just doesn't adhere to Minecraft's terms and conditions. These servers may be independently run, but they're still hosted with a connection to Minecraft. So work has to be done to communicate with these server owners to ensure there is a minimum baseline of community guidelines that should be met. And then the hosts are free to create their own additional guidelines or server rules and completely customize their own server on top of that, just as long as these don't conflict with Minecraft's community guidelines. These guidelines should be high level, and generally speaking, they should be focused on what is required to ensure a healthy community. Aspects like treating everyone with respect, no hateful, offensive, sexist, racist, homophobic, harassing, or bullying messages at all. All other rules should be up to the individual server hosts. The most important aspect here is having open communication with the server owners on Java. The Minecraft team has to be empathetic and understand that this is a super frustrating change. But given Minecraft's situation has also changed, i.e. they were acquired by Microsoft, and the rise in toxic behavior leading to real-world harm and impact on gamers' health, they need to work together to work on a solution. Any clear violations of these guidelines could be reported across any of these servers, but it must include evidence. Now, in cases that were considered offending, I would actually recommend placing temporary bans on these offending members, and there should be a way for the player to appeal. But perhaps they have to get the backing from their individual server's community manager or admin to ensure that their claim has been properly assessed and confirm how the original report was potentially inaccurate. Now, if it turns out that a false report had been made after the investigation, then the offending player who had made this false report should be permanently banned. It should be included in the community guidelines that this is what would happen, this is what would take place, to ensure that players would seriously think twice before making a false report. Some other tips I would give generally around how to avoid toxic behavior or remove it from your community is ensure you have strong member verification checks. You want to make sure that real people are joining your community. You want to make it harder for people to just join casually and troll. So ensuring that they're a real human being and having some way to identify them is just really important. Now, it's also important that if you're going to blacklist people in your community that have caused severe harm, make sure you globally blacklist them if you have a global community. It's also really important to improve the communication between the community. Avoiding all this talking but not really walking the walk. For example, telling your community that their feedback is really important is one thing, but how are you showing your community that their voice is important? We need to see the evidence, and the community needs to feel listened to. When you look at Web3 community tools like Snapshot that allow for community voting on major decisions, this is where you can show your community that their voices do matter and that as a whole you can make decisions that directly impact them. Even if the Minecraft developers don't believe in crypto or blockchain, they could really learn a lot from Web3 communities and the way that they're treating their community members. In fact, I recently discussed this incredible Web3 project called the Nouns DAO. The way that they involve their community in shaping their brand is truly at the forefront of building a community-led business, and it's scaling up like crazy. Of course, we have to remember that the Minecraft team is literally looking after 141 million active users per month, so we have to give them some credit that they're trying their best. But having systems and tools in place to ensure that your community voice is being heard is truly important to avoid these frustrations and avoiding toxic creep. So let's just remember that temporary bans are important. Strong community guidelines are a must. Having moderators that actually enforce these guidelines is required. Ensuring very open communication between the community and yourself as a business or an NFT project or whoever you are that is managing a community. Make sure that you have really strong communication with your members and make sure that their voices are being truly heard Don't just tell them that they're being heard, show them how they are being heard. I want to see evidence. If you're a Minecraft fan, an active member of the Minecraft community, or you yourself are dealing with toxic members in your community, I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below, share your experiences. If you yourself have tried anything that's really worked with dealing with toxic members, would love to hear that. Thanks for watching. I'm Carmen, the community coach, and I'll see you in the next video.